What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about a must-draft breakout player at all four fantasy football positions. So one running back, one wide receiver, a quarterback, and a tight end. These are players who maybe have shown some flashes of being fantasy studs, but maybe they haven't put it together over a full season. Maybe they haven't had the offensive situation around them, but I think this is the year where they can go out and break out, and you may not be able to draft them, as low as you're going to be able to get them this year for the foreseeable future. So let's dive right into the first player here. We're going to start off at the running back position, and this guy has actually not taken an NFL snap. It's going to be Jonathan Brooks, and I've talked about Brooks in a few different videos. I'm very high on him this year, and I just don't think there's going to be an opportunity to be buying low on him after his rookie year. I think he's going to ball out in year one, and then I think you're going to have to be spending a premium draft pick next year to get him on your roster. He was a second-round pick in this year's draft to the Panthers. He's currently being drafted as a high-end fantasy running back 3. Now, the main red flag here for Jonathan Brooks is that he's coming off a torn ACL, but all the reports we've gotten have been positive. They've been saying that he's going to be good to go for week 1. Now, is he 100% full workload week 1? That seems pretty unlikely. I'd assume they want to kind of ease him back in here. That would make sense. But I think if Jonathan Brooks, is heading into this season without the torn ACL, he was fully healthy, no injury concerns, I feel like you could make an argument that he should be drafted RB12, RB13 area. I really think he'd be a fringe running back 1 as a rookie. So I just think the discount of the torn ACL going from a fringe RB1 to a high-end RB3 or a mid-tier RB3, I just think it's too big of a difference in his overall draft position. Brooks has a 3-down skill set. His new head coach, Dave Canales, has talked about getting him, in open space, using him heavily in the receiving game, which is obviously great news for his fantasy production. And then we also just saw Dave Canales last season use Rachaad White like the workhorse for the Buccaneers. So, in a time in the NFL where the workhorse running back is kind of disappearing, his new head coach used a running back who I believe is less talented than Jonathan Brooks in that workhorse role. So I think Jonathan Brooks, once he's fully healthy, ready to go, I think he's going to be able to handle a pretty solid workload here. And like I said, I don't think he's going to be coming out of the gates giving you RB1 production. It might be a slow start. It might be a committee with Chuba Hubbard, Miles Sanders, all these guys getting involved. So maybe, you try to buy low on him a few weeks into the season. But I think anyone, who's intelligent in your league, if they're drafting him, they shouldn't be expecting someone coming off a torn ACL to be balling out in the first few weeks of the season. So I don't really know if that buy opportunity is actually going to be there. But I do think that once he's fully back, we saw it with Brees last year. I think it was week 5. He was cleared for his full workload. He just tore it up throughout the rest of the season. I think when Jonathan Brooks hits that point, he can be a running back 1 down the stretch, and you're just not going to be able to pay, a high-end RB3 price tag for him ever again at this point. Now, shifting over to the wide receiver position, my breakout wide receiver here is going to be Garrett Wilson. And I'm pretty sure in this exact same video I made last year, Garrett Wilson was my wide receiver. Obviously, that didn't go well, but I'm confident that I would have been right if Aaron Rodgers didn't go down in week 1, because that really was, what's been limiting Garrett Wilson here, his quarterback play, the situations he's been in. He was working with Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, Trevor Siemian last year, and in these bad offenses, he's just done everything he possibly can to show us he's talented, still give you some sort of fantasy production. This Jets offense last year was 3rd fewest in passing yards, fewest in passing touchdowns. He's still gone for over 1,000 receiving yards in both of his seasons. The touchdown upside obviously hasn't been there. He has 7 total touchdowns in 2 seasons, but that should definitely come here with Aaron Rodgers. And when we look at his ability to earn targets, that's what's really exciting about the future, because if he's earning targets at the same rate that he's done within the last 2 years, now you do that in Aaron Rodgers-led offense with the touchdown upside, the passing volume, he could have a monster fantasy ceiling. He was 4th in targets last year, 7th in target share, 3rd in air yard share. Personally, I'd be comfortable taking him the back end of the first round. I could see some people kind of getting scared off. He hasn't really hit that ceiling yet. Some people like a player to prove it to them before they're willing to kind of project and take them really early. So maybe you get him to slip into the early second. I think anywhere, later than the late first is just a screaming value here for Garrett Wilson. Now, pivoting over to the quarterback position, my guy here for a must-draft option is going to be Anthony Richardson. And Richardson was great when he was on the field last season, but I don't really consider 2 full games, 2 partial games as someone breaking out, because it wasn't over a long period of time, wasn't over, a full season sample size here. But Anthony Richardson checks pretty much every box you would want for an elite fantasy quarterback. We know he has that top tier rushing upside. He has good arm talent. It's probably the most unproven part of his game at this point, just at the NFL level. But I think, tool-wise, he has a very strong arm. He has a great offensive-minded head coach in Shane Steichen. He's surrounded by a lot of really talented weapons. You have Michael Pittman, young wide receivers, Josh Downs, A.D. Mitchell, Jonathan Taylor out of that backfield to help him out in the run game. When we look at his 2 full games last year, he put up 29.6 and 21.9 points. Honestly, it would not shock me if we were looking back at this season and Anthony Richardson ended up being the quarterback one. I don't have him ranked all the way up there just because guys like Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, they've proven it, but I have him right in that next tier with Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. I think he can have a monster season. I have no problem drafting him in that same range with Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, even though they've done it more consistently. I just think that Anthony Richardson does have that game-breaking ceiling, and that's what we should be chasing at the quarterback position, especially if you're not like punting. Like if you want to wait on the position, get like a Matthew Stafford later on in the draft, a Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers, that's totally fine. But if you're drafting a quarterback round 3, round 4, round 5, even like round 6 territory, in my opinion, they better be coming with some upside. Anthony Richardson has that upside. And then my final must-draft breakout player is going to be Trey McBride. Now, personally, I think it'd be fair to say that Trey McBride broke out last year, but he didn't technically do it over the full season. So when you look back at his 2023 numbers, like he improved, but they don't look all that special. When you actually dive in, his 2023 season looks a lot better because he became a full-time starter in Week 8. He averaged 15 PPR points per game over the next 10 games, and he did that while only scoring 3 touchdowns. If he did that over the entire season, he would have been the tight end 1 in points per game, and he was doing it without hitting in the touchdown department. He wasn't getting lucky, scoring a touchdown every week. He was actually probably getting unlucky in the touchdown department and still delivering you, high-end tight end 1 upside. He was great, in the per route numbers, first in target rate, second in yards per route run. Now, it's not going to be the exact same situation next year. You obviously have Marvin Harrison Jr. coming in, but overall, I'm just very high on this offense. I think McBride has already proven that he has that elite fantasy upside. I think this, Cardinals offense with Marvin Harrison Jr. coming in, Trey Benson coming in, I think it's just going to raise the ceiling of everyone in this offense. And so even if he's not the top weapon, we've seen a guy like Travis Kelce share a weapon room with Tyreek Hill. Both those guys can eat in the same offense. I think the same thing can be true here for Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride. And then I also just think he's kind of due for better touchdown luck here. So he's ranked as my tight end 3 this season, but I really do have him like right in there with Sam Laporta, Travis Kelce. I've noticed on a lot of different platforms or people's rankings, they have, Laporta, Kelce in whatever order at the top, but then there's like a pretty large gap, maybe like a round of ADP, round and a half between then like McBride, Andrews. I think McBride and Andrews are right up there with Laporta and Kelce this year. So I think if you can get that discount for Trey McBride, I love, getting in on him before I think he puts together a monster season over the, the full 17 games if he is healthy. So that's going to wrap it up for my 4 must-draft breakout players. Jonathan Brooks, Garrett Wilson, Anthony Richardson, Trey McBride. Definitely shooting for upside here. Garrett Wilson, I think the quarterback upgrade is going to help him out a ton. Richardson just has everything you'd be looking for. McBride flashed it last year. And then Jonathan Brooks, I think second half of the season, I really do think he's going to go on a tear in this Panthers offense. So thank you all for stopping by. Let me know your thoughts on these players, and I will see you all in the next one.